I want to play a game.
Welcome back, folks. What we're going to start on right now is the user interface right here, where we're going to show the level, the score, the lives, and some type of ball movement, which we'll get to a lot later. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and insert a picture box. And right now it's going to cover up my labels. So what I want to do is change the color of this. And to put it behind the labels, I'm going to right click and send to back. What that's going to do is put it behind my labels. So what I'm going to do is stretch this all the way across, and this is going to be the box that kind of holds all the user interface information. So something like that. Notice the labels still have that same background color though. So what we'll want to do is either hold down Control or Shift. Make sure you have all your labels selected. So just hold down Control and click on them. And I'm going to change the background color to the same color I chose for the picture box. So I'm going to change that over here to back color. So you can do the same thing with the picture box, change the back color, and make sure it matches your labels so it looks nice. Alright, so these labels are kind of small. I want to make them a little bit bigger for the player. So what I'm going to do is go into, select them all, go into my font property here, and I'm going to go ahead and change the size, make them a little bit bigger. That looks good. You can change the color if you want to as well. You can make it bold, whatever you want to do here. Change these properties how you like it. And now what we're going to do, since these are already attached to some information that we have when we start the game, for example, when I hit play here, okay, right now we have it to show this different information. We're going to actually change that. We might need those 3 values right here for testing purposes though, so what we can do is just comment it out. And what that means is we can make comments throughout here. So if we just turn these into comments by putting an apostrophe in front of them, okay, notice how they're green. This line of code is now not going to be run. Okay, basically comments are used to either do something like this, like I just showed you, or to actually comment on code. So for example, for these 2 lines, if we wanted to comment what's going on, we could say create variable to hold new location of paddle. Okay, and basically what comments are for is so that if you're working in a team or you need to show code to another programmer, the comment actually kind of helps explain what's going on in the code below it, or what it's supposed to do. So then if you're debugging, you can say, oh, well, this isn't supposed to do this, and then make a change. So for example, down here, you can make another comment. Paddle location is updated with new position, so new location. Okay. Technically, we should be putting comments in every single line of code. However, I've kind of just left this out because it would make the code, A, twice as long, and B, kind of hard to maneuver. So I kind of left those out for now. If there's something that we're going over and you don't quite understand it, it probably would be helpful to put in a comment, so just to tell yourself that's what that's for. If you want to start doing that, you can, but just want to show you that. So now, after we've commented these out, now we can actually change the name. So these were just label 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to come back in here, select these one at a time, go into the name up here, and this is going to be LBL for label, and then this one's going to display the level. So I'm using camel case here, LBL for label, and then capital L for level. I'm going to come down here, I'm going to actually change the starting text. We're actually going to do this in code, so it doesn't really matter here, but I'm going to do it here anyways, just to kind of see what it's going to look like as a little preview. Do the same thing for label 2. I'm going to change this to LBL and lives. Okay, so that's just the name of the object, so that's how we're going to grab it in code. But down here is what it actually displays. So I'm going to say lives 2, and this one will be label score. And it's going to show the score. It's going to start off with 0. And I'm going to make one more. So you can either drag out a new label, or since I want to keep all these same properties that I did, with the font and the color and all that, I'm going to hold down Control. And now when I click on this and drag, kind of gives me that little cursor with the plus sign. And now I can just drop it and it'll have the same properties as before. It does give it a new name though, because each object needs to have a different name. So we're going to rename it anyways. So this is going to be label status. And that's going to be for the ball status. So for example, later on I was thinking about doing some power-ups and whatnot and kind of change how many balls are in the game at one time, make it a little bit more interesting and up the difficulty a little bit. So this is going to be ball type. For right now, it's just going to be a single ball. All right, go ahead and position these where you need to in your design up here. Make them fit quite right. That looked good for me. All right, so one thing that's going to happen as soon as we've done that is now if we test it out, I release my ball. As soon as it gets up to the top, of course I had to go through the middle, but it's going to hit that picture box. And since it is a picture box, it's going to delete it along with the other labels as well. So what I'm going to have to do is kind of modify my top position. That is where I want basically the ceiling of the game world to be. So I'm going to come down in here, right here where the balls reach the top of the screen. I'm just going to increase this value. Remember, by increasing it, I'm actually going down on the design view. So 0 is up at the top. This one right here is 30. So if I do 40, it's going to be below it. At least that's my hope. So you can just test that out until you get a value that works. So here's 40. Looks like now it's not going to hit the labels, but it did hit that picture box. So I'm going to decrease a little bit more. Try 50. There we go. And it's super close too. So it doesn't actually hit the picture box now. Once it gets past a Y value of 55, it just turns the other direction. Okay. All right, so next thing we're going to work on is upping that score. Okay, so each time we hit a block, we add to the score. So what we're going to need is a variable to hold that. All right, so up here we're going to do dim score as integer, and we're just going to set it to 0 at first. So then down here in code, we need to find the section of code where it actually hits a block. So it's going to be right down here at the very bottom. So at the very end, when it changes the ball direction, I'm just going to add in a line here that says score. Now, instead of setting it to a value, for example, if I want each block to be 10, I shouldn't just put equals 10 because it's going to set it equal to 10 every time it hits. We need to add 10. So one way to do that is to set it to score and then add in whatever it is. So this will keep the original value of whatever it was beforehand, and then I'll add 10 to it. This is kind of ugly though. There's a shorthand way to write it. So I'm going to show you a different operator. Instead of an equal sign, for example, we can do a plus and then an equal sign. What this does is it is basically the same line as what we had previous. It's going to keep the score and then add whatever number you put here. Okay. We can also do a similar thing with subtraction. So you can do subtract equals 10, and this will do the same thing. It'll take your score and subtract whatever value you put here. All right, we do want that to be plus equals, and you can use whatever value you want here. I just chose 10. So this will work. This will definitely increase the score, but the problem is score is kind of a variable in the background. We're not actually changing this label to show that to the player. So that's a step that a lot of newbies miss. So we got to be able to update this and show it to the player. So we need one line of code right after this, and we're going to grab that score label, which I called label score. We want to grab the text property of that label and set it to the correct value. So we're going to say level, or I'm sorry, not level. We're going to say score. All right, so this string is what's going to display here, and then all I'm going to do is attach whatever score is to the very end. Notice I put a space right here. So we have and now I'm just going to say whatever the score is. So this is the actual number that displays the score, and it's our variable as well. All right, so now if I test that, every time I hit a brick, 10, 20, so on and so forth. You get the idea.